Compañeros, welcome to another edition of the SQL Data Partners Podcast. My name is Carlos Chacon, and I am joined today by my better-looking cohorts, Eugene Meininger and Mr. Kevin Fiesel.
Hello.
Howdy.
He obviously means me more than Eugene, but
I think he just means that I shaved finally, right? So
I mean, that's true.
I shaved, I got a haircut. My spouse demanded it before I go presenting in front of real people. So I think that's mostly it.
Yeah. Yeah. So so if you're on the podcast and you want to check out the video, right? Eugene looking all,
That's how we're going to draw up the viewers, is just to entice them.
Have to enable some, video content.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's episode, we're coming back. First, it would be after the day. You're not hearing this, but if you were hearing this live, I would be able to say to you, Happy Pi Day.
Right? Happy Pi Day.
Yes. You had.
I'm hearing it live.
What's that?
Yeah, I'm hearing it live.
Then I will say to you, Kevin and Eugene, Happy Pi Day.
Thank you.
Did you get your pie today?
I didn't even think about it. No, I saw some stuff on Twitter, but I'm not a practicing mathematician. So.
Oh, is that one of the qualifications?
Well, I mean, it's.
Does teaching my 7-year-old the basics of addition count as
probably? Yeah.
Because I have already celebrated. So
that's fair. Oh, you got your pie. What flavor of pie did you get?
I went with a coconut pie.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so very good. So we have and then Eugene has actually just come back from SQLBits.
Yes. Yep. I tested negative. They let me back in. I was very happy about all that. We almost missed our layover in JFK.
Oh wow.
Because I did not realize how huge. One, I did not realize how huge the airport is. And two, for some reason, I didn't realize that whenever you do an international flight, they're like, we don't trust the UK security system, so we're going to need you to go back through security.
Oh yeah.
So that was a time. We rechecked our bags, and she's like, you need to go to your gate now. And we're like, but it's how far can it be?
Yeah. Welcome to JFK.
I know. No, in Pittsburgh, if the gate number is 51, that means it's just like at the very end of the second terminal or the very beginning of the third, right? Like it goes 1 through 100. JFK 51 means you're going through all the numbers. Get going. So, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Glad to be back. But I had a wonderful bits.
Yeah, very good. Well, we'd like to talk with you about that.
Yeah.
So your trip actually inspired today's episode, and so I know, and I hope we can talk about this. And I guess Kevin needs to give me the but Kevin's been doing some trainings, right? And so I thought, well, so COVID, the restrictions are lessening, if you will, or people are feeling more confident about getting out. I see that the conference numbers or in-person conferences are starting to tick up again this year.
Yeah.
And so I thought that we might talk about how do you decide what to learn, what to focus on, right? Even in our podcast, we talk about lots of different topics, and I know we're going to preach to the choir a little bit here, but I thought it might be interesting to just hit on a few of those notes here. But before we do, here, let's see. I'm not quite sure what our URL today is going to be. So I'm just going to go with, you can find our show notes today at SQLDataPartners.com/2. Oh my gosh, what the heck episode number is this?
Welcome to season 6, everybody.
That's the pros description is SQLDataPartners.com/2. Oh my gosh. If you can type it, then you get to listen to the episode.
There you go. All the bonus features that'll be there, right? It'll be totally worth it. Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure this is episode 243. So that's what I'm going with. Episode 243.
All right.
So you can find it at SQLDataPartners.com/243.
Yeah. If you get it wrong, we'll have to backfill episodes, or it's like with SQL Server when you run out of integers and you have to go back to the negative ones.
Oh man, yes, good times. That's a great analogy. Thank you, Eugene.
Yeah.
So as we talk about training, right? So SQL Trail, has morphed. Well, it's still there, right? And we are planning to do something in the fall. But SQL Trail has spawned, perhaps is probably a better word. So the seasonal series. We just finished up the winter seasonal series with Ginger Grant, talking about virtual databases and how to do reporting off of the virtual databases in Synapse, right? Generally off of Excel files or flat files. And so we are looking to put together another one here for the spring. So the way we've done those seasonal series is they're generally 3 is kind of the way they've come. So 3 sessions every other week, so over the course of 6 weeks, we have the 3 sessions, but they're somewhat tied together, right? So they expand a little bit on the topics. If there's something that you think we should be talking about in there, please let us know, right? Reach out to me online or my email, carlos@SQLDataPartners.com. Be interested in getting your take, compañeros, and what you'd like to hear about. So with that, right, let's jump into. Oh my gosh, right? I'm getting a little rusty. I have some shout outs I need to give.
Can you narrow shout outs? Yeah.
That's right.
Welcome to season 6, everybody.
And there we go. That will make Amanda happy. Or terrified, one of the two, because she'll say, I'm not ready. Nothing like just jumping in. So shout outs for this week include Wendy Miller, Brandon Hornberger, Fabian Waddell, Kim Roberts, Miguel Rangel Alcorta, Whitney Schaus, Fabricio Faz, Sarah Reyes, Yaharam Basudora, Luis Reese, Mohammed Darkawi, Asan Ahmed Musan, and Alfonso Moreno Faris. So thanks, compañeros, for your shout outs and engaging with us on social media in some way or another. And we do appreciate it. And so now I think we're ready to circle back, and we can ask Eugene about his field trip.
Yeah,
over the pond.
It was a good field trip. I saw Big Ben, and then Andrew Notarian informed me that's the name of the bell, not the tower. So I learned that. I saw Westminster Abbey and was horrified to realize it's also a mausoleum, and I was just walking on graves. So didn't know how I felt about that, but I assume you're talking about SQLBits and the training stuff.
Yeah, that would be the focus, but we do appreciate tourist details as well.
Sure. No, it was good, and I'm glad I attended some pre-cons, right? So, you talk about what to learn and what to train on, and Synapse for me is one of those things that I don't touch in my day-to-day work at all. Like I don't know about you, Carlos, but at least you and I have never talked about a customer of yours doing anything with Synapse. Right. And every time I talk to you about like cloud stuff, you're like, well, let's keep doing Power BI, or we've got stuff around here. Sure. But one of the things in determining what to study is looking at, okay, where do you think the market's going? Right. So
I'm just jumping right in there. I feel like we've skipped over your trip, and
that's fair. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to be on top. I'll go back to the trip.
So I guess to the conference, right? So this is the first major conference of the year.
Yeah. No, it went well, and there was a lot of people there. Okay. I got to connect with peers. I got to meet new folks. It was so refreshing to get to see people. I definitely think conferences are back to stay, but it's going to be awkward for a lot of people because there was not a lot of masking, right? Like there was definitely some, but I know at least in the UK they had relaxed a lot of their restrictions recently,
right. As they have in the US, right?
Well, so I needed to take a test to get back into the US. I did not need one to get into the UK.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So even more so than in the US. And so I think it's going to be awkward for some people, but there was a lot of people seem to be enjoying themselves. There were a ton of sessions. So it was,
what did you
event.
Present on?
I had 2.5 sessions because I got roped into a panel on mental health 2 hours before. So thank you, Steve Jones, for having me fill in for you. I gave a 20-minute talk on Power BI licensing.
Okay.
And I gave a 20-minute talk on dealing with depression, so a mental health talk. And so those all went well. But man, after being rusty for 2 years, it's even a 20-minute talk is stressful.
Okay. Well, there you go. So yeah, that's good. I mean, that's good that folks are starting to come out, right? We have a fairly large event here in Richmond at the end of the month. At least, it used to be large, right? We'll see what happens. So I am curious to see what who turns out.
Yeah, I don't know what SQLBits' normal size is. I have a feeling their attendance was a lot lower than usual, but there was still plenty of people. I mean, it felt pretty full to me,
Sure.
So I think by the time like past summit happens in November, I think we're going to be back into full swing, assuming we don't get like another surprise surge or something with COVID, fingers crossed.
Sure. Now, I know we have said it, and it has been mentioned on this podcast in a previous episode. I don't remember which one, but a long time with Guy Glancer and Richie Rump and Swatan, and I think Chris Bell was on there as well. But we talked about conferences and part of the strategy. And the comment was made: don't go to sessions, just go to meet people, right? So I'm curious, and we didn't talk about this beforehand, so you'll forgive me, but did you go to any sessions?
Yeah,
your own, obviously.
No, yeah, besides my own. I attended a decent number.
Okay.
I think the hallway track was a little bit harder to attend, if nothing else, because of the geography. So not geography, like the layout of the convention center and everything, right? Because it was basically just taking place in this giant expo hall. And so the only thing separating the rooms was literally black fabric and like risers and stuff. And then it was all kind of dimly lit, so it was a little bit harder to attend the hallway track, but I did a good bit of both. Most of the networking happened like at the hotel or around the events or that sort of thing. So obviously then the physical presence, and I guess we'll loop Kevin in here as well, right? But because there are definitely times where that's part of the draw of conferences is going and meeting folks. But how do you decide when you're going to go to a session? Is there a formula, or is it kind of just like, what, I kind of have a feeling right now, I'm feeling a certain kind of way?
I'm feeling lucky. I mean, okay, so part of it is I will check the schedule out and I will say, this is a session I must attend. I'll look at some. These are sessions I would like to attend. I'll look at some. If I don't have anything else, this will be a session I'll attend. And it's not a castigation against the sessions that maybe I'll attend. It's more of we're on day 3 of the conference. I'm going to be exhausted. I don't know if I'll be awake by this point. And if I am, if I have the desire to be in a session sitting down for 75 minutes, if I am, that looks like a good place to be. But sometimes you have plans and then you just have a conversation and conversation goes on. Right. And then you say, well, 40 minutes into the session, no big deal.
Sure.
Yeah. And there are other times where, I've got to see this session because it is very pertinent to me or my interests or has some intense draw that requires I be there.
Yeah, I think I attended way more sessions than I would if it was a local conference because I kept thinking about how much money I paid to be there. You know what I mean? Like, I kid you not. It's like if this was a SQL Saturday equivalent or something like that where I could drive to it, I would have attended a third of the sessions. Right. Gotcha. But I was like, I paid a lot of money to be here. So I'm going to try and do that. And then
one related factor to that is I tend to attend more sessions in Europe or in Asia than in American conferences. And part of it is, for example, Eugene speaking. I've seen Eugene speak. Eugene does a great job speaking. I probably have already seen that session before. So, or something that was similar enough to it that unless I want to troll Eugene, in which case, I'll go. Yeah. But in a lot of cases, when you talk SQL Saturdays, okay, I've seen that session. I saw the original form of that session. I haven't seen that one, but I've seen 3 others like it.
Yeah.
And none of it is a knock on the speakers. They certainly do good jobs. And if I were based out of Europe, when I would come to the US, I would go see all of those sessions. But it's just that having been to enough conferences, I could say, all right, I've already seen, most of these sessions here, so I don't really need to go see them again. Whereas in Europe, I haven't seen most of those people speak before, and it'd be nice to go see person X or person Y give a session because, well, I haven't seen them.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of folks that either I had known them on Twitter and met them for the first time, or I got to connect with a lot of the European Microsoft MVPs, and so that was really great. So I definitely agree with that. Like when it's just like all the SQL Saturdays within a 6-hour radius, you get to know a lot of the people. But anytime you're traveling that far out, it's really worth to get to see how they present live for sure.
Yeah. Now to kind of delve into perhaps like where you started, Eugene, before I rudely cut you off.
Yeah.
But yeah, that idea of so choosing topics. So you mentioned the speaker, and I feel like that drives a lot of folks. Obviously, there are there's a celebrity, factor. I can remember sitting in at a mechanics session at PASS, and the room was packed.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was there for, I'll give myself a little bit longer than 90 seconds, but it wasn't longer than 5 minutes. And he starts talking about all this applied math. And I'm like, I'm in the wrong session.
Yeah.
And I had to get up and leave, and it was. So you definitely have to have the stars aligned a little bit there, and there's nothing wrong with going to see somebody. Great to see them speak. That's all a great reason. But in terms of, I guess where my thinking is how do you start picking the technologies that you want to pick up? So Eugene talked about market factors already.
Yeah.
Obviously, if your boss tells you, oh, by the way, we're implementing this, next week or whatever. You need to brush up on it, or I'm sending you to this conference so that you can attend this thing. Those are, I suppose, those are gimmies.
I have a strategy, but I want to let Eugene go first.
Okay.
Because my strategy is detailed enough and expansive enough that it may take a little while.
There we go.
All right. I want to make a Zugzwang joke here, but I think only Kevin will get the joke, right? Or reference. So, the whole idea Zugzwang is the idea in chess that sometimes it's disadvantageous to go first. But that's okay. Anyway. What's funny is a lot of the sessions I attended or intended to attend was personal development stuff. Right, which was kind of shocking to me, but I got to hear John Morehouse talk about what it's like to work for Denny Cherry. I listened to Brent give his usual career internals talk, which like you said, some of these I've seen his talk before, but it was nice, just refresher. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this event was me just looking at the schedule and see what caught my interest. But I think. Really you have these circles of interest related to what you do, or this solar system kind of approach. And so for me, at that very center is Power BI, right? Everything Power BI is relevant to what I do. You just have to tolerate that sometimes you already know the stuff. Right.
Content that,
yeah. Well, especially it's rough when you do a pre-con, when you attend a pre-con, right? Because my second pre-con was Power BI and Synapse. And most of the Power BI stuff for scaling it up, I already knew.
Sure.
And then there's stuff that, it's a couple degrees of Kevin Bacon away. Like the Synapse stuff is I had a situation with a customer where they were storing this event data, we'll call it, this machine produced data, and it compressed really well. And so what was gigabytes in SQL Server was megabytes in Power BI, or if they did a column store index. And what ended up being the solution was Parquet files, right? And if I didn't know
all the new hotness, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if I didn't know how to spell parquet, then I might be in trouble with, helping them out. But I mentioned it offhand. It's like, well, hey, why aren't you guys looking at this? And they realized that ADF can produce parquet files, and now they're like ripping out this one huge table of their system to use that.
By the way, folks, that's like the floor, not the margarine.
Fair enough. I keep thinking of parkour, like hardcore parkour, which isn't related at all. And then there's just stuff where you just want to get some exposure and hear about it. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of those. So, I mean, those are like the three circles that I think about is it what I do every day? Is it kind of on the periphery? And is it, I don't think I'm going to be using Azure Data Studio anytime soon, but let's give it a look. Right.
Sure.
I'm glad Eugene went first, because that was a really good answer to the what do I want to learn? And the best that I can do is summarize his answer and claim credit for it, because I think that's pretty much exactly what I was thinking there. The other half of what you were talking about, Carlos, is, well, what do you think about creating to speak? Like if you're creating a session, what do you look for in topics? So if you're learning, I think Eugene's got it absolutely right. Step one, what is there that is at your level or higher in your topic of interest? And I kind of have to put that at your level or higher, because if you're already an expert in Power BI, a lot of the Power BI sessions will tend to be introductory. They will tend to be, let me show you how this thing works, because 80% of the audience either has never touched it, or they touched it 4 years ago, didn't quite know how it worked, and just gave up on it.
Right.
So a lot of sessions at conferences are necessarily going to be at that introductory level. It's rare that you get really, really advanced. And when you do, well, you're probably the one teaching it. So at your level or higher, sessions in your topic area, sessions that are related close enough that you can jump in and pick up something new about that periphery thing. So, for example, if I were at a conference and learning about, let's say I was delivering something on .NET and Kafka, and that's a combination you don't tend to see very often. But you'll get people who know Kafka and say, I want to learn a little bit of .NET. Or you'll get people who know .NET and say, I want to learn a little Kafka. It's rare that you'll get someone who says, I don't know anything about either of these. So it's that I know enough about one of the two that it is close in my wheelhouse, and now I can branch out. And third is, well, there are some people who will go in for, this sounds pretty cool, let me just go check it out. Worst case, I walk out in 5 minutes. Best case, I learn something that's possibly a new interest. That would be the person teaching on Go or Rust or Dart or Vue or whatever the language du jour might be. Or frankly, me talking about F# stuff.
Sure. Also correct. Anything like functional programming is going to fit in that category. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. But I do say, come learn F#, because we give you free monads. There are like 3 people in the world who are listening to the show who got that joke, and those 3 people, I salute you.
Oh, man. I only half got the joke, and that's okay.
There we go. I just know that Kevin thought it was funny, so that's good enough for me, right?
I thought it was horribly funny. So yes. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to, let's talk about how do you decide what to present?
So before you jump into there, right? There's one more thought I have on the learning piece, and for better or for worse. Now this is right. As Kevin drinks a Microsoft Koolaid there for me, coming from kind of the Microsoft world, sometimes Microsoft wants to push some things, right? Generally, you'll find them in the keynotes, but I kind of feel like it is advantageous because at conferences, they generally want to be pushing the new features to take in something, even if you don't necessarily want or need to know it. I feel like going to some of those intro sessions can be just enough for you to be able to speak to it, because Microsoft is marketing it right? Somebody higher up is going to be like, well, how come we're not doing that? Right. And you need to at least be able to speak or connect the dots and be like,
Right.
oh, well, it's for this scenario or, whatever. Right.
Yeah, it's that antidote to CIO magazine.
Right.
Where I read about this really cool new thing here, and you can say, oh, okay, yes, here are the cases in which it works. Here are the cases in which it doesn't work. And I know just enough about it that I can look for additional resources later on if you really do want to go down this route.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that was another thought. Now, I know Kevin, he's anxious to talk to us about his formula for choosing things to teach, right? But I perhaps the comment I will make prior is, because of the time investment needed, right, to create something that is enjoyable for others, right, to consume in a session, that's quite a big time commitment, right? And so it makes sense that you would want to think through that, or even if again, it's just that idea of how do I approach technology, because there are so many things you could talk about, right? How do you go about choosing that? So anyway, Kevin, go ahead, take it away, bud.
All right, so here's the battle proven, time tested strategy for choosing what to speak about.
Oh man.
And yeah, it's gonna have a couple levels to it, and these levels are not necessarily intended to be normative in the sense that, oh, you're just level 1 versus level 3 people.
Right.
Instead, think of it as a progression along certain tracks. And the first level, teach what you know. Especially if you're getting started, this is your first session. Don't take on a session that is a topic you don't know about. There's so many unknowns already in how do I speak? How do I present to people? How do I make sure that everything is working right, that I don't embarrass myself? We've talked about this on prior episodes of the podcast, and I'm sure that there are plenty of people, including us, who are willing to freely give advice on how to not worry about all those questions.
Sure.
Stuff's going to break. Get over it.
Right.
That's the short version. And so you start with, what things do you know really well? And frankly, it does not matter that there are 500 other people who have given exactly that same session. If you know index tuning or the details of how indexes work, the index internals, if you're going to give a session on diving a DBCC page and you're passionate about that topic, that's a perfectly good reason to present on it. Especially if you're talking local community. Local communities tend to love local speakers.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of stress off of trying to find people. And it also gives a chance for people to get out there. It gives you a chance to get out there a little bit. And again, I don't care if there's somebody who is internet famous who has a presentation on exactly the same topic. Doesn't matter. That person's not speaking. You're the one who's speaking. So start with things that you know, that you feel like you know really well. Then you can start branching a little bit into things that you want to learn, but aren't really fully aware of yet. You know enough about it that you realize you're not going to embarrass yourself. This is not like a high risk, high gamble where I know nothing about this topic and I'm going to submit to a conference and, I got selected. Now it's time to learn about it. Pick something, for example, again, if you are a query tuning person, you might pick something like Query Store. You might pick something like, say, some functionality in SQL Server. I might pick diving into Column Store. I might pick memory optimized tables and or something that is going to be a little bit of a push for you, but that's a growth push. That's one of the nice things about speaking is that it gives you a commitment that you have already committed to learn X well enough to be able to at least be 2 pages ahead of everybody else in the book And even if you're not, it still doesn't matter. There may be somebody in the audience who is much more adept at it. They are typically interested in seeing your take on it. One example I'll give, that .NET and Kafka talk, I actually gave it for a Kafka user group in the Raleigh-Durham area. And it turns out that Confluent had an office in Raleigh-Durham, and I had several people who work for Confluent who ended up going to that talk. And I'm like, I'm not going to teach you anything you don't know. But by the end of it, they taught me some stuff of tuning .NET-based applications and getting faster throughput out of it. So I gained from it. And they got an opportunity. Actually, I believe by that point I had switched the code over to F#. So they had a chance to see .NET language they normally wouldn't see. Because in the Confluent world, they tended to be more Java people. So even seeing .NET to begin with was a little different. But even if it had been in Java, it's still interesting to see somebody's take on the topic. So you start branching out a little bit. Then, depending on your scenario, you may get to the point where you're having to learn a thing for pay. So your job says you need to learn log analytics. So now it's time to learn KQL. Well, again, commitment. Commitment is a powerfully focusing thing where if I have a presentation, like I'm giving a presentation on Azure Synapse Analytics and Data Explorer pools, which means I'm in the process of learning KQL and getting hopefully decent enough at it that other people will be able to see how it integrates with Azure Synapse Analytics and not be totally embarrassed by my relative novelty to the language. This is, again, higher risk. And as you get more comfortable, you can take additional risks. You can take risks like, well, I'm going to learn. I'll pick on Go again because I don't know anything about Go.
Right.
And I'm probably not going to learn about Go, but that's okay. There are other people who've dived into Go, and those people, that's a case where I know that a person could successfully give a talk on that starting with no base knowledge, except that a person could successfully give a talk on it. I could commit to giving a talk on it because, again, that's an area where perhaps I want to learn about it. So you'll notice that this has a pretty close analog to the what should I learn? The what should I teach? Expanding concentric circles. Start with what you know, branch out to things that are close to what you know, move on to things that are required of you or that you need to have that commitment to learn, and go further into exploratory, where to the point where you might submit a conference on a topic on something that's completely unknown to you. Let's say robotics or programming a Raspberry Pi to do something, or launching SQL Server into space. Like
the last reference. Yes. He's got his own podcast. He doesn't listen to our podcast.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. He's fancy Drew.
Yeah, right.
I mean, still can't pronounce his last name, but for Joel.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, now one of the thoughts that I had, so from a learning perspective, because I kind of feel like learning is about, I guess there are two pieces, right? So there's a career expansion piece. So obviously you have to learn things to be able to apply them, right? To pass interviews or, what have you, right? Take on projects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I also feel like there's the networking piece of it as well, which can be within your own company. And now I would imagine with COVID, the whole like lunch and learn model has kind of died off a little bit. So compañeros, I'm very interested to hear if any of you are still doing lunch and learns. Let me know. But part of the idea that I had, and even with the training, if you wanted to submit something, is can you do something internally to help people know that you know it. I feel like there's value in maybe you don't have to implement it, but at least being able to talk about it and kind of being the go-to person to float an idea by, right? Because those are like those conversations are then just going to breed opportunity because people are coming to chat with you about it, right? And so that's why I feel like it is. And again, we're preaching to the crowd a little bit because obviously you're listening because you want to keep up, on different, topics. Right. But I feel like there is perhaps another element to it is that now if you're not circulating that knowledge, and I'm not necessarily talking about just, again, SQL, going to SQL Saturdays or whatever events, but even, how do you in your own little network, right? Increase the what others know about you, basically, right? And offering to put something together or share, right? A little, hey, this is what I've learned, kind of going through that formality, I feel like can be very helpful. Whether you have a job and you're looking for something else, or you're looking for work, or whatever stage you might be in, or you're looking for an advancement, right? The more conversations you're having, the more opportunities will come.
Yeah, and within a company, I'm gonna steal blatantly from something that is common in the Power BI community. So Power BI has this notion of the center of excellence, and you have as well. It's starting to get into other areas like Azure Synapse Analytics. But one of the components of that center of excellence is that regular training, that capability, that ability to start getting people familiar with and involved in the world of Power BI. And that includes things like training events that happen internally. So this is knowledge dissemination within an organization, as opposed to having outside expert come in and present to the group. It's more of internal person talking about, it could be running through dashboard in a day. It could be talking about, here's some of the standards and practices that we have at company X. This is how we've done custom themes. This is how we've worked with mobile layouts. These are some of the custom visuals that we've worked with or that we've built internally. And this is getting you from a point where you're a business analyst who's interested in the idea, you've heard about it, and you're not sure where to begin, to being familiar enough to work with the product. So doing that, it doesn't have to be Power BI. The concept of a center of excellence, at least that component of it, is within an organization, you have some skill set, most likely. If you have no skill sets, you're doing a really good job of sticking around with zero skills. I applaud
fraud
you.
Is your skill set at that point, right?
Yeah. I mean, fraud is a skill. But you probably are doing something at least reasonably well, especially in relation to your peers. You have some specialties, you have some specialization, and your ability to document, to train people. See, the real secret is that edge isn't why you have the job. In fact, if you give that away, you end up getting a better job because now other people are doing that work and you're the smart guy who got other people working more, so you get the better opportunity. Welcome to management.
Which Kevin, if you can't see him, he's kick his feet up on the table, and he's like,
kick back with the cigar, and
it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? Okay. Well, yeah. So anyway, I think that kind of matches what I was hoping to do here, right? Because I think there are, as we start getting back in person, there's going to be these opportunities, or even at the local user group level, right, to start engaging. So how do you? Yeah. Now, I guess I will say that there's a slight caveat. I've been to lots of user group meetings that had no interest in the topic, but you go because you're trying to support the group. That's a whole different ball of wax, if you will. But as you start going to conferences or even webinars, right? Heck, even take the seasonal series, right? How can you decide where you're going to invest that time and, and what to do? And I feel like there's some good considerations here. So having said that, last thoughts as we wrap up today?
I think some of this stuff just takes time to figure out, right? But definitely, if you haven't gone to a big conference, go to a big conference, because I mean, it really was a big step for me. So maybe we'll see you at Summit. I don't know.
Oh yeah, is that happening in person this year?
That's what they claim. Yeah.
In where is it going to
Seattle?
It's going to be in Seattle at the conference center.
That's an open question that I'm sure somebody at Redgate knows, but
that's my understanding as well. So we'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That will be that would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, anyway, and then there's calendaring, that whole shebang. So very good. Yeah. So compañeros, right? So again, if you're doing lunch and learns at your office and that's going well for you, I'd love to just to know what you've done there and how you've participated, and how that's how that's helped you. So thanks for tuning in today, compañeros. If you want to reach us on social media, you can do so through the following. Eugene?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SQLGene, or you can read my blog, SQLGene.com.
Mr. Kevin?
If you open up the social media computational expression and have a let and call a function, we're going to need to bind to something of type social media type, and then we'll eventually be able to downcast that to return with a bang my social media handle.
That seems fair enough.
You're like, one monad joke wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we needed 2 monad jokes today.
Well, I can tell you that was of type either funny or not. So
I can tell you that Drew doesn't have 2 monad jokes on his,
that's true.
On his podcast, right? Compañeros, you can
next up on the SQL Data Partners monad jokes.
Reach out to me on LinkedIn at Carlos L. Chacon, right? Or as I mentioned, you can hit me up on email. I'm at carlos@SQLDataPartners.com. Be good. I hope you enjoy your pie. If you haven't had pie, go get yourself a pie and call it a day. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you on the SQL Trail.
Bye.
SQL Data Partners.